Okay, inshallah we can get started. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our fourth session of receiving your Quran study. Oh, just one second. I'm so sorry. I'm having a technical issue. Just one second. Sorry. Okay, we should be fine now. Sorry for the inconvenience. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, we should be fine now. And welcome to receiving your new season. We are meeting for the fourth time and continuing to reflect on how we can more deeply connect with the Quran. Dr. Yamina will be leading the session as usual, and we would like to really continue the interactive format of our sessions. So please share your thoughts, comments, questions during the discourse as we explore today a very important Quranic concept, the concept of being aware and getting rid of living mindlessly with ghafla. So without further delay, I turn to Dr. Yamina, who will kindly lead us again in tonight's session. Jazakumullah khair. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So last week we ended with stating that the root of our predicament is ghafla or mindlessness or heedlessness as it's usually translated. And as usual, I also reminded ourselves that there is an underlying factor that is very important, which is intention and choice. And of course, intention is what's going to get rid of ghafla. We are either, once we decide to live intentionally, then the more intentionally we live, the less mindless we will be, inshallah. And that is a choice that we make. And we want to understand what ghafla is really. And the more we understand what ghafla is, inshallah, we will be able to also understand what the cure for it is and how to cultivate mindfulness and Iman, actually. That's why Iman is so important. Iman is only cultivated with awareness, with intention. And so when we are living with Iman, with belief, with faith, then we are less likely to fall into a state of heedlessness, of ghafla. And so we want to look at ghafla and how it is portrayed to us in the Quran and recognize it within ourselves, within our lives, inshallah. So the ghafla is from the root ghafala, or to be or to become unmindful, neglectful, heedless. And so ghafil is the one who is unmindful, the one who is heedless. And actually, interestingly, the Arabic word for simpleton is mughaffal, a person who is easily fooled. And it also comes from the same root. From the beginning, we want to also understand that.
I missed that word you used, simple-minded person in English?
Yes.
Okay. That's right. Okay.
Mughaffal.
Mughaffal. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we want to also understand how important it is to understand ghafla, because it is a very serious illness. If we call it as an illness, it has been described as a sickness of the heart, actually, or as the root of all sicknesses, of various sicknesses of the heart. So in the Quran, in Surah Al-A'raf, in Surah 7, we're actually told that the ghafil, the unmindful, the heedless, is worse than animals because animals were not created, were not supposed to live consciously. So when human beings live mindlessly, they're actually putting themselves in a situation that is worse than cattle, we are told in the Quran. So in Ayah 179 of Surah 7, we told, and most certainly we have destined for hell many of the jinns and people who have hearts with which they fail to understand, eyes with which they fail to see, and ears with which they fail to hear. They are like cattle, nay, they are even less conscious of the right way. It is they who are truly heedless. أولئك هم الغافلون. So the truly heedless are those who don't use their heart for the purpose of their creation, don't use their eyes and their ears to fulfill the purpose of the creation. They just see like animals see, and then hear and eat, as we are told, and eat and enjoy themselves, as we are told in another ayah. And right after this, the next ayah, 7:180, we're told, and to God alone belong the most beautiful names. Invoke him then by these and stand away of all those who distort the meaning of his names. They shall be requited for all that they were wont to do. So we can see also that being truly heedless, meaning failing to use our hearts to understand and our eyes to truly see the truth and our ears to hear the truth, is to miss the reality, the truth that all the beautiful names belong to God. All the attributes that we long for, all the goodness that we seek in this life, all belong to God alone. And can we do something about the noise?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you. And the heedless are not aware that the most beautiful names belong to God alone, because they attribute those names of God, those qualities of God, to other things. They distort the meaning of the names. So this is very important. It's something very, very serious. Can you imagine, like, in order to attract our attention so that we realize how important this is, we are told that they are like cattle. Actually, they are worse, because they fail to use the most important gifts that are given to them: hearts and seeing and hearing and hearts and souls. They are using them for something that is not worth it. So we also need to keep in mind that there are degrees in ghafla. And the more we delve into worldliness, and we will see how it is repeated in different passages in the Quran, the more we delve into the worldly life, the more our ghafla increases, and vice versa. It's like a vicious circle. And the more we contemplate on the ayat in the Quran, in parallel with the ayat in the world, the more our ghafla decreases, because our iman and mindfulness and ihsan increase, inshallah. And also ghafla affects many areas of our life because they are interconnected. So ghafla of who we are, when we are not aware or when we don't keep in mind that we are sustained abd, that we are created right here and now, being sustained in life and existence right here and now, then we tend to start perceiving and imagining ourselves to be independent of our Rabb, independent of anything. And then we start forgetting about the transient nature of this worldly life. And so we don't realize that everything around us is an ayah, is speaking to us. And as a result, we become heedless of the reality of death, the reality of life after death, and so on and so forth. Our delusion increase, and so does our heedlessness. They are related. So heedlessness and delusion, horror. Maybe, inshallah, if you take notes of the main characteristics of ghafla, as we see it described in the passages of the Quran, and how to heal it, how to heal ourselves from it. And then, inshallah, if we have time at the end to share it and summarize, or if we don't, then we can summarize it and you can share it next time, or maybe email it to us and we can share it with everyone next time, inshallah. Maybe today. So in Surah Yunus, Surah 10, Ayah 92, we are told that, so God says that about Fir'aun, that his body, he saved his body to make it into a sign, into an ayah for people who come after Fir'aun. And at the end, we are told, for behold, lots of people are heedless of our signs, our ayat. وَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ عَنْ آيَاتِنَا لَغَافِلُونَ. There is a lots of emphasis, multi emphasis in this sentence, which is saying, and surely indeed, lots of people are really, really heedless of our signs. It means most people do not live with the awareness of our signs. They are mindless of our signs. لَغَافِلُونَ.
Dr. Yamina, could you please share the verse reference again? Which ayah?
Surah 10, ayah 92.
Okay, thank you.
And then in Surah 10, ayah 6, we are told, truly, in the alterning of day, night and day, and in all that God has created in the heavens and on earth, there are indeed signs, ayat, for people who are conscious of Him. As for those who do not anticipate the meeting with us, with God, and who content themselves with the life of this world and feel satisfied with it and are heedless of our signs, their goal is in the fire in return for all what they were wont to do. So we are told that everything, the creation of day and night, the heavens, the earth, everything is full of ayat, of signs for people who are conscious. And then we are told in ayah 7, but those who do not anticipate the meeting with God, with us, God is speaking, saying with us, and because they forget about meeting with God, they content themselves with the worldly life. And so they feel satisfied and secured with it because they are heedless of our signs. Their goal is the fire. And the next ayah we are told, so the solution is given in the following ayat, in 9 and 10. Truly, as for those who have believed and done righteous deeds, their sustainer guides them aright by means of their iman, of their faith. Running waters will flow at their feet in gardens of bliss. And in that they will call out, limitless are you in your glory, O God. Subhanaka, Allahumma. And their greeting will be peace, and their call will close with Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All thanks and praise are due to God, the sustainer of all the worlds. So we are told what the reasons of ghafla are: forgetting about meeting God, as if this life in this world is going on forever, and being content with the life, the worldly life, and seeking satisfaction in it, and remaining heedless of the signs that are everywhere in the heavens, the earth, anything between them. Whereas those who believe and do righteous deeds, their sustainer guides them by means of their iman. And what they say subhana, they make tasbih, they glorify God. Remember, tasbih is to realize that God is beyond any defect, anything less than perfect. It also means that, subhanallah, it means if I see something beautiful, it is not, I'm benefiting from something, I'm thirsty now and I have water in front of me, and it seems to me that water is benefiting me, I say subhanallah. The one who is benefiting me with this lifeless water is my Rabb, the creator of me and the water, the one who uses the water compassionately with wisdom and knowledge in my body and in everything in the world. the only one who is the source of all life, the living, who gives lives by means of lifeless water. So tasbih is very important. So they make tasbih, and then their greeting is salam. That's when you can find true peace. There is no true peace without tasbih. And then their gratitude, their thanks goes to God alone. وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. So ghafla stems from desiring the worldly life, the adornment, the achievement, something, some goodness, the gains of the worldly life, instead of desiring God's face. This is what we are told again in the Quran, in Surah Al-Kahf, Surah 18, Ayah 27 and 28, especially 28, but 27, just to give us a context, it starts with recite or read, no, witlu. Okay, recite that which has been revealed unto you from the book. So remember, reciting the Quran is something healing to the heart because it is a message, a guidance from our Rabb. And the more we consciously reflect on the meanings of the ayat in the Quran, the more when we are reciting it, it will heal our heart, because our heart will interact with the living text, with the healing, with the guidance in the words, in the sacred words of the Quran. So we told, recite that which has been revealed unto you from the book of your Rabb, your sustainer. None alters his words, and you will find no refuge apart from him. So this is guidance. It's telling us you can't find refuge in anything else. And contain yourself with patience. In Arabic, you understand it means persevere. Wasbir nafsaka, it means persevere. Contain yourself in patience, persevere with those who invoke their sustainer morning and evening. It means constantly. Those who invoke their sustainer constantly, desiring his face. يريدون وجهه, desiring his countenance, the face of God, and do not turn your eyes away from them. It means away from those who invoke their Rabb constantly and desiring his face. Do not turn your eyes away from them, desiring the adornments of the worldly life. ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا. And do not pay heed to whose heart we have made heedless of our remembrance, because he follows his own whims and desires, and who has transgressed all bounds. It's a very beautiful, very comprehensive ayah. Like, we're told how to stay away from ghafla by persevering in the company of those who constantly invoke their sustainer. Because in the beginning we say, how am I going to be in that state suddenly? I am not used to it yet. I can't be constantly invoking my Rabb. Okay. Seek the company of those who are in that state, who are constantly invoking their sustainer, desiring his face, and do not turn your eyes from them. And at the same time, we're also told to keep away from those whose hearts are heedless. Why? Because they desire the worldly life. So this is important. You can see it in passages in the Quran. The hearts become heedless when we are focused on desiring the worldly life. You can say that, and the more we desire the worldly life, the more we're stuck in heedlessness. It means they are absorbed, they're engrossed with the goods of this life, and not wanting to see the reality that those things that we are so much desiring are all ephemeral. They don't last. If we keep that reality in mind, then we would have to stop and pause and say, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, La uhibbul afilin. I do not love that which sets, that which is transient and ephemeral, because the heart we are creating with this fitra, the human heart does not like what is what sets, what is ephemeral. But when we have a selective perception, we bracket out that reality and we focus on desiring the worldly life, then the heart grows heedless, more and more heedless of its reality, of our purpose in life. And so the desiring the goods of this life becomes our goal in life. And the heart starts longing for those things because of the delusion that when I have those things, that is that imagination that those things would benefit us, would bring us what we are so much longing for. What we are longing for truly needs to be eternal and lasting. But in that delusion, in that state of delusion, we want to imagine and deceive ourselves that once I get this and this and that, everything will be fine. And of course, it's not true. It's not true because they are ephemeral. And even if they were lasting, we are going to leave this world. We don't stay in this world for forever. So something is wrong in that in that perception. It is a deluded perception. So we have to pause and check our hearts. What are our deepest desires? Are they related to the worldly life alone? Are they not related, but are they, do they not go beyond? If they don't go beyond the worldly life, if they have no connection to the afterlife, to eternity, then there is a big issue here. We need to stop and question ourselves and face the reality. So we need to stop and pause and listen to ourselves regularly. Have this muhasaba, it's called. What's going on? What are we doing? And it is, it's like checking our qibla, our direction in life, our istiqama. Remember the Prophet ﷺ saying, شَيَّبَتْنِي اسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ, and we are told in the Quran it is a command, an imperative, استقم كما أمرت. Follow the direction that you have been, as you have been told to, as you have been bidden to.
Dr. Yamina, one thing that I want to highlight, you already have mentioned, just to highlight it one more time. I find it interesting that one of the qualities of being mindless in ghafla is being content with this temporary life, this world, this life. As you were talking about it when you were referring to some passages from Surah 10. And that's very interesting because, you know, being content with this life, initially it sounds like it's a positive thing, but actually this is not positive, because it isn't being content in the sense of connecting it in gratitude to the creator, but it's being content in the sense of being okay with reality that is not connected with God, in that superficial rush from this thing to that thing. And if I tell myself that I'm okay with this transient running around, you know, we want to do this, do that, do this, do that, even though we know all of it is passing and all of it in themselves don't have value. If I am content with this, it's actually not being content. So actually, perhaps muting of the cries, my internal cries, wanting more than just this transient life. So it just struck me as you were mentioning that in the Quran, one of the problems with one of the indications, or I guess causes of ghafla, being mindless, is to pretend that this world in its transience is okay, is enough for us.
That's possible because of our heedlessness to the signs. The ayah actually says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا وَرَضُوا بِالْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَاطْمَأَنُّوا بِهَا وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ آيَاتِنَا غَافِلُونَ. So they do not anticipate the meeting with God, and they are content. They content themselves with the life of this world, and they وَاطْمَأَنُّوا بِهَا, and they feel satisfied with it because they are heedless of our signs. Because they can't be, as you said, they can't be truly content and truly satisfied if they consider the reality as it is. It is only in that delusion, bubble of delusion, that it feels like this life is, we're doing fine. But deep down, there is always something missing. And that's why whenever there is something that reminds us of death, of transience of everything, people don't want to talk about it. And when it happens within our close environment, it's like a shock. People are shocked because momentarily we have to go out of that bubble of delusion. And last week we talked about that's when it's either we see it as an opportunity, an invitation to consider the reality as it is and seek help and guidance, or very quickly go back into the bubble and shut the doors and say, oh, it's very scary out there, and carry on the same old heedless life that leads nowhere. So it is a superficial contentment and satisfaction. True.
There was a sharing from Imam Nursif in today's Receiving No newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
I attracted attention to that it mentions exactly this notion that we live in a bubble. It says the metaphor there is your life is like a grave, in the sense that the past is gone and the future is not there. So you have this fleeting present, but then it's as if you're in a grave with mirrors on both sides. So you imagine that it's expansive and it's huge, but actually it's just so tiny. And then we oftentimes try to kind of imagine that, no, I'm here forever, nothing is fleeting. And then the calamities wake you up. It says in the text that when you're shaken, you realize you hit yourself to the wall. It's like, oh, this is such a narrow place. And it's narrow because in itself it's transient, but then there's a way out of this bubble that will take us to an actually much larger world if we can choose to see the signs.
Sure. And what recognizes the sign within us, the heart and the soul, at that level, the life is not that narrow. It's actually very wide. So we need to, And that's what we were talking about last week, that we don't want to only remember God from crisis to crisis, but all the time, and to cultivate that mindfulness that will pull us up to the level of the heart and the soul, inshallah, of the ruh. And that's why we need to regularly ask ourselves, pausing, slowing down, asking ourselves, what are you doing? Where are you heading to? Because if I'm not heading towards the right direction, even if I'm going to go very fast, so what's the point? Actually, it becomes worse because I'm getting away from the goal further and further, quicker and quicker.
Dr. Yemina, there's somebody who wants to share something.
Yes, please do.
Zahida, please go ahead. You need to unmute yourself first. Would you like to share something, or I see your hand up? And you're still muted. You want me to unmute you? I guess I don't know if okay, I'll go ahead and unmute you maybe.
Yes, do, inshallah.
Yes.
Something to share, like we can.
We just started hearing you now, so.
Sorry.
Could you start from the beginning? We weren't hearing you.
You are not. Yeah, actually, I want to add, or I can ask. I want to add one thing, that we can balance this heedless life with the meaningful life through daily 5 times prayer. Am I right?
Let me rephrase it. Then it won't be really balancing. We don't want to balance heedless life and meaningful life, inshallah. We want to, because we don't want, balance means they are equal, but we want to decrease the heedlessness and increase the meaningful imani life, inshallah. And surely, the 5 daily prayers are there to help us in this endeavor, inshallah. Now, what we are talking about is how to make our life more meaningful, so that our prayers, 5 daily prayers, are also meaningful. Because if we don't learn to live mindfully with iman, with ihsan, then even our 5 daily prayers will remain at, like the mindfulness there will remain very, how do you say, seed-like. We want to increase our iman, our mindfulness there as well. So then they will really help us. The more we pray to our Rabb, when we stand in prayer, we remember who our Rabb is, because we now made, we reflected, we have been introduced, we know our Rabb somehow at one level or another with his beautiful names. So when we stand during the 5 daily prayers, all that knowing will be refreshed. And so it will nurture our living in the presence of God, our ihsan. And so, inshallah, then I think that's what you meant. In between the 2 prayers, we will be less likely to forget, to fall into heedlessness. Or even if we were to start falling into heedlessness, by the time we fall, we are again reminded, inshallah. So definitely the 5 daily prayers and all the pillars of Islam, that's why they're called pillars. They are there to ground our iman, to ground our mindfulness, our living with ihsan. Given that we already cultivated that iman and ihsan. Inshallah. Does it make sense? Okay, I guess we can carry on. Or Isra, you can unmute.
Okay, yes, I can unmute the sister. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to know more about that meaning of heedless life.
That's exactly what we're talking about, inshallah, today.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. So I was saying that we need to pause and listen to ourselves regularly. Otherwise, we can easily find ourselves rushing towards some worldly goals without checking if they're really worth it, or the meaning of what we are doing that, and what is the connection to akhirah, what is the connection to our purpose in life, to our ubudiyah. And the result, if we don't check, then the result is that we get disconnected from our own heart and soul, and with finding our true purpose in life. And the result is going to fuel that rushing into achieving things here and there, but not knowing why, fuels our ghafla. It stems from a ghafla and it fuels it as well. And it fuels also our delusion and blindly pursuing some what we call achievements, this and that, but actually we're seeking fulfillment in them. And underneath, as we are told in the Quran, truly, we are told you're pursuing your own whims and desires, which means that's not the heart's desire, but the ego's greed and whims. So to achieve this, we need to learn to reflect on the meaning and the messages of the ayat in the Quran and in the creation. Especially, we need to remember how everything is transient, how everything is ephemeral, because in their transience itself is an ayah, is a sign indicating an unending source of sustaining. My life is flowing, is leaving, but I'm still here. There is nothing in me that requires me to be here yet. And yesterday, last year, the past years are all gone, yet I'm still here, I'm still being sustained. So this state of being, if I'm not scared of it and stay with it and listen and reflect on this reality, it actually mirrors and reflects and indicates a source, an unending source of sustaining, an eternal source of all what we long for. Everything I need is given to me, is being given to me right now, yet I am in my delusion looking for it outside in things that are created like me and that are ephemeral like myself. So transience and death is a clear sign that this worldly life cannot be our goal. And it is also a clear sign to the hereafter, to akhirah, and eternal life, to those who reflect, of course, as we're told again and again in the Quran.
Fatima, I want to maybe ask something, but I don't know if you want to take it now or later. I think for many of us, a question that comes is, what is it that is worldly in the interaction with the world? Because sometimes when I think of that, I want to drop everything. You know, I don't want to make a cake. I don't want to, paint my room. We talked about this before, but it might be helpful to maybe kind of visit it again, because worldly is a term that's used by many, preachers, and it basically means don't be too involved in the world in those contexts. But in the receiving Nur context, we don't mean that way. That it isn't about you're working too hard to achieve a particular goal that is in the world. You're being too involved in the world. Those are not the concerns, or are they? I mean, how do we understand ghafla in terms of our, doing things in the world? What do you mean by worldly? You already touched on it, but maybe it would be helpful to unpack it a bit more, or maybe mention.
I mean, just very shortly, because it's something that actually came back so many times. It's one of the main things we repeat, and it's related to everything being an ayah. By worldly, it does not mean there is no such a thing as the worldly life, and then one day I die, and then akhirah starts. In that mindset, in that paradigm, it seems that I'll work a little bit for the world and a little bit for akhirah. I'll do my work and then go and read the Quran and pray and give some sadaqah and maybe read some Quran. That's, I think, what you were referring to. Now, what we always talk about is something different. What the Quran talks about is something different. Why? I'll start with the first thing and then the second. The first thing is that, is it true that life is like we live in this life and then one day I die and then akhirah starts, the life after death? Okay, let's say I'm skipping the qabr, the in between, and then let's say akhirah starts. Is it true? Is it how it works? Is it a linear, is it a line like this in time? It's not. Right now, the past is already not here. The past is already gone. And at the time when each one of us leaves this world and dies, only that moment ends with my death. Everything else has already gone before. So actually, it's not like my life is one long string and then death and then a long string, akhirah. No. It's my life and akhirah are parallel now. Akhirah is happening now. Yesterday is not here now. I am already in a constant returning to God, and one day it will be the last day, the big return, death. But death is not something that we taste only at the moment of our death. That's why we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. When we hear someone died, we remind ourselves, and we are told in the Quran, this is the surah from the Quran an ayah from the Quran, Inna lillahi, we belong to God, and to Him we are returners. We are in a state of returning. We are returning. Often translated as we will return, the ayah does not say we will return. It says we are returning, because we are returning now. Yesterday is not here. 10 years ago is not here. Last year is not here. Last month is not here. Last week is not here. Yesterday is not here. This morning is not here. They have already gone. So this is the being mindful of the transience of this world, so that I don't have that illusion that one day I will die. And so the ego very quickly takes it that, oh, people are dying. One day I will die. I don't know when. No. I'm already dying. I'm already returning in a state of returning. So the ego cannot say, but we don't know when you will die. So we have time for lots of things. No. I am going towards death right now. So this is very important. The second is, and they are related, when we say, so worldly is when I am unaware of this, I'm unaware that everything is leaving now, then I am unaware that everything is coming. It is in a perpetual flow, flowing into this world. Because it's flowing out, it means something is flowing in. Where is it coming from? It is when I start perceiving the world in that way, more mindfully, more after reflecting, then I start realizing that there is a flow in and flow out. And that flow in, I realize that there is a connection between what is in the world now and the world of the unseen. Actually, that's how I get to become aware of the world of the unseen. In the first paradigm, I'm not aware of anything. I'm only repeating. I was born Muslim, and therefore I don't deny, but not denying is not iman, is not belief. And therefore, I am told in the Quran, there will be akhirah. I say, okay, there will be akhirah. I have to get ready for akhirah. There is no belief, no evidence, the heart is not confirming anything. There is no witnessing, no shahada, because I haven't seen or observed anything or experienced anything. In the second way of being, in the second that we are taught in the Quran, and that I personally learned from Imam Nursi rahimahullah, because we see the flow in and out, it is through that flow that I realize that where is it coming from? That's the world of the seen, is the world of the shahada. Alim al-shahada is indicating an unseen world where everything is coming from and returning to. And so I can now, I'm witnessing it, I'm experiencing it in my own life, and I can confirm and say, Sadaqallahu al-Azim. I confirm that whatever God says in the Quran is the truth, because I see it in my own life, in my own experience, in the world out there. So what the worldly is when we are unaware of the connection of the world around us, of the world in this life, to its source. It becomes worldly because it has no connection to its source, no connection to our Rabb, no connection to the beautiful names of God, no connection to Akhirah. So whatever I do with that lack of awareness of that connection, not realizing that everything is an ayah, everything is speaking and indicating the source it's coming from and the attributes of the creator, the sustainer, then in that mindlessness, the world becomes worldly, and it is ephemeral without any result that lasts, because there is no connection with anything lasting. It remains here in the world, and it looks to the transient world itself, and that's it. My love to the world stays to the world itself. There is no connection to anything else. In the second one, when I'm aware of the connection of everything to its source, because I am witnessing, I am experiencing the flow in and out, I realize that everything is coming from the unseen, returning to the unseen, that they are all coming with meanings, with messages from our Rabb. I start reading their messages and how they are glorifying, making tasbih of their creator with his beautiful names. And therefore, my love for the world is transformed into love for the creator, the sustainer of the world. And so my interaction with the world is transformed into ibadah, into ubudiyah. And one example that I gave many times is my drinking water. I can drink water and say, water, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, because I'm a Muslim, that's how I learned. But actually, in my experience with water, I am attached to water itself. Without realizing, I believe that water itself gives life. Without water, I will die. So I'm scared of losing water. So my heart is attached to water itself. And as a Muslim, I add, oh, God created water, alhamdulillah. But my heart is not involved in all this. In the second mindful way of being, I have to first confirm the message of the Quran. I can't just repeat it by heart, imitating. What if I was not born in Islam? What if I was like the first companion, the Prophet ﷺ and his companions? They were not born into it. The message came to them. They learned from it. They confirmed it because they experienced its truth. It's not like this, okay, it came, must be the truth. No. They had to perform the shahada. They witnessed its reality. So I look at that's why pausing is very important. Pausing is slowing down, reflecting. It's an opportunity to reflect and to question the taken for granted. And I say, subhanAllah, like this water here, and I'm here. This water knows nothing about me. It has no life, no thinking, no consciousness, no will, no power, no knowledge. Lo and behold, I pour it into my body, and there it is, life and all kinds of things are being sustained through it. It can't be doing it. Someone is giving me life with this water. That someone is the one who has the will, the knowledge, is the one who is giving my life. That one is my Rabb. And so when we are told in the Quran that we give life by means of water, I say, yes, I confirm this. And so I can see how water is glorifying its maker, as though saying, La ilaha illallah, there is no, I am not the giver of life. The giver of life is my sustainer. The one who gives life to you is the one who creates me and employs me in your body. So I start communicating with water. We become friends in God. I recognize that it is an ayah speaking of God's name, glorifying God with his beautiful names. I glorify God through my drinking of the water. My drinking of water becomes a shahada, becomes a ibadah, a worship, increases my iman, increases my presence in the living in the presence of God, my ihsan. And I think we did this in our first meeting this year, this season, inshallah. Does it make sense?
Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
I was not planning to go there because I thought we repeated it so many times, but I get it right. We need repetition.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair for taking the time to go over it once again.
So it is not based on taqleed. I'm Muslim, therefore I add Alhamdulillah, I add Bismillah at the beginning, I do all my work in a worldly way, and then do something for Akhirah, as if the world and Akhirah are totally unrelated. That doesn't work. That's not what the Quran is teaching. And we are told in Surah Al-Anbiya, for instance, in Surah 21, in Ayah 1 and 2, we're told their reckoning, حساب, اقترب للناس حسابهم وهم في غفلة معرضون. The reckoning draws near for humankind, and yet they remain stubbornly heedless and turn away. Our hisab and our meeting God, means death and afterwards resurrection, is very close. But we say, we don't know, maybe I'm going to die after 40 years, so I have time. No, even if I'm going to die after 40 years, death is always with me. It's the other side aspect of life. My past is already not here. It's already gone. So death is with us. Our reckoning is always close to us. The reckoning draws near for humankind, and yet they remain stubbornly heedless and turn away. So do you understand here the reckoning being close is a truth for everyone. It's not, oh, some of us is close, some of us is not. No. And then next ayah we're told, whenever there comes unto them any new reminder from their sustainer, they listen to it while they are playing. Their hearts are distracted. So what does it mean that they are playing? It's not that they are not listening. They are listening, but they are playing. They're playing with the world because the heart is distracted. The heart is busy with the worldly. They're busy with the things of the world as though they were disconnected from their source, from their Rabb, from their creator. لاهية قلوبهم. And actually the Arabic is not only there is a emphasis, لاهية comes before قلوبهم, but also لاهية is saying that their hearts are distracted all the time. They are in a state of distraction. That's why they are playing. They listen when a new reminder comes from the sustained. They listen while they are playing. They are playing means their heart is busy with something else. It means they remain heedless of the reality of death and akhirah and the hereafter. And that leads us to expect satisfaction from others than God. And the worship of idols. And the worship of idols is when the heart is attached to things in themselves, for themselves, as though they were the source of the benefits given to us through them. We may know mentally, we may know intellectually as information that yes, God is sending me these blessings, but in our hearts, we don't feel the gratitude and the love for the true giver of the gifts, but to the gifts themselves. That's why we need to pause and ask ourselves and look into our hearts. And we are told this ghafla leads to superficiality and ignorance. We are told they know but the outer life, the outer surface of this world's life, of this worldly life, whereas of the ultimate things, they are utterly unaware. يعلمون ظاهرا من الحياة الدنيا وهم عن الآخرة هم غافلون. We are also told in, so the next ayah, this is in Surah 30, ayah 7, and in ayah 8 we are told, have they not reflected within themselves? This is what we need to do. This look into your heart, pause, is reflect within yourselves. And this is what we are told in the Quran. Reflect within yourselves. أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. God has not created the heavens and the earth and everything between them except with truth and an appointed term. Yet, behold, many people reject the meeting with their sustainer. Because if I just drink water and then say, Alhamdulillah, my drinking water does not increase my iman. If it does not increase my iman, it is not ibadah. Just because I said Bismillah and Alhamdulillah, yes, but I said Bismillah, but I did not drink Bismillah. I drank in the name of the water. When I was drinking, I was feeling I need water itself. This water takes care of my needs. So I said Bismillah, but it didn't remind me of anything because I've never learned the meaning of Bismillah. But when I learned the meaning of Bismillah, then I drink Bismillah. Then I drink the water as a gift from my Rabb, as this lifeless water enters into my body, and lo and behold, life is being breathed into me. Alhamdulillah. Then I realized that my drinking of the water, my interacting with the water as an ayah, as a messenger carrying the messages from my Rabb, glorifying his names, reminding me of eternal life, because the names of God are eternal. It's not the water gives life, but whoever is giving me life through water is the giver of life. The giver of life, here, now, tomorrow, after I die, always. Not only to myself, but to anyone, all my friends, all my beloveds, everyone I care about. Everything is, so it increases my iman in God and my certainty of akhirah here and there. And that's why I look forward to, then we start looking forward to meeting our sustainer. But otherwise, death is scary, and without realizing it, we become oblivious of the meeting with, people become oblivious of their meeting with their sustainer. In the next ayah, it says, have they not then journeyed about the earth and beheld what happened in the end to those who have lived before their time? They were greater in power than they are. They left a stronger impact on the earth and built it even better than these. And to them came their messengers with all evidence of the truth. And so it was not God who wronged them, but it was they who had wronged themselves. And once again, evil is bound to be the end of those who do evil by giving the lie to God's ayat. So giving the lie to God's ayat, not recognizing things as God's ayat, comes back as a boomerang in this life, but mostly in akhirah, because in this life we can delude ourselves and lie to ourselves. But in this life, because we never find true satisfaction, we never find our sustainer, the true source of all that we long for, all that we need. Although he's the one who is sustaining us here and now, we remain stuck in things that can do nothing because they themselves are created. So the result of ghafla is delusion, and vice versa, delusion increases ghafla. In Surah 45, ayah 34, we are told, and the word will be spoken, today we shall be oblivious of you as you were oblivious of the coming of this your day, the last day. the fact that I don't deny akhirah does not mean that I live with, that I have certainty with it and I live with that certainty. So it says, today, God will say, today, we shall be oblivious of you as you were oblivious of the coming of the day. It doesn't say oblivious of God. And so your goal is the fire, and you shall have no help, no one to help you. This is because you made a mockery of God's ayat, God's signs, having allowed the life of this world to delude you. So when we are stuck in the life, when we focus on the worldly life without being aware of its connection to the Creator, to God, this is being deluded by the worldly life. And this, we are told here, this is what it means to make a mockery of God's signs, because water is not a sign in that perception. Even when I'm saying Bismillah, even when I'm saying Alhamdulillah, it could be that I never interact with water as an ayah. It does not speak to my heart. My heart is still stuck to the world itself. It loves the world for itself without being aware, meaning it is heedless, it is unaware, mindless of the connection to our Rabb and how he is sustaining me through water, through this, through anything that we give importance to in this world. I think this is very important. And that's why we're explicitly told, let not the life of this world delude you. And this is repeated in the Quran. فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا. Do not let the life of this world, the worldly life, to delude you. Because worldly life becomes worldly life only in a state of delusion. Otherwise, it becomes, when we are not deluded, we realize that they are all signs, they are all glorifying God, they are all mirroring the beautiful names of God, they are all mirroring the face of God. Remember, we were told to seek to remain with the people who constantly invoke God and desire his face. We will see the face of God everywhere. Water becomes the throne of God, where the face of God, we will see all kinds of beautiful names of God in water and in our relationship with water. And so in Surah Al-Fatir, Surah 35, Ayah 5, we're told, O humankind, surely God's promise is true. So do not let the life of this world delude you, and do not let the deluder delude you concerning God. And in Surah Luqman, Surah 31, Ayah 33, we are told also, O humankind, be mindful of your Rabb and stand in awe of the day on which no parent would avail his child and no child will avail his parent. Surely God's promise is true, so do not let the life of this world delude you, and do not let the deluder delude you concerning God. The same expression is repeated. And in Surah 6, Ayah 70, we are told, leave those who take their religion to be play and diversion. Their religion, you can also understand dinahum, their way of life, to be play and diversion or distraction, and who are deluded by the life of this world. So what does it mean to take one's religion as play and diversion? Is to be deluded by the life of this world. But remind them with the Quran, lest any soul be delivered to ruin because of what it has earned. It has no protector apart from God. We have no protector apart from God, nor any intercessor. and though it should offer every kind of ransom on that day, it shall not be accepted from it. Those are the ones delivered to ruin for that which they have earned. So we don't want to earn that. And if in order not to earn that, we need to not be deluded by the life of this world. Does it mean that we stop living in the world? Or go in a cave or something? No, live in the world as it is. It is a world of creation. It is a world where we are told everything is an ayah. Everything speaks of him. Everything indicates his beautiful names. Everything comes from him and goes back from him. Everything, wherever you turn, there is the face of God. So this is the reality. The worldly life that we don't want to be stuck in is a delusion, is the perception of the deluded. So it said, do not delude yourself. This is a delusion when we think, we imagine things themselves are the source of their benefits or their whatever. It could be benefits or harm, but they harm me, they benefit me. And in that perception, the connection, we are unaware, we are heedless of the direct connection of the benefit and the harm through those things, directly related to whoever is sustaining everything in life, ourselves, and those things. In my example, it was water, but you can take anything else and apply it to it. So ghafla is related to being deluded by the glitter of the worldly life at the expense of lasting life in the hereafter. This is what we are told all the time, but we need to understand this organically, that the worldly life, the glitter of worldly life is a false perception. It is a misunderstanding, a misperception of the deluded mind who has not, where we all start. And that's why we need the guidance of the Quran to get out of that delusion, inshallah. And that's why we're constantly reminded of this, of the transience of life, and therefore of the hereafter, and therefore of everything being. How do we go from the transience of life to the hereafter? Because everything is flowing into this world and leaving. Everything is coming and speaking and reflecting the beautiful names of God, the eternal beautiful names of God that carry on, that tell us about God and eternally, here, now, and forever in Akhirah. And it tells us of the reality of death and therefore that of resurrection. And that's why if it is repeated in the Quran, this is also an indication of this importance. So ghafla is about forgetting the reality of death, the reality of transience and ephemerality, and therefore the reality of resurrection and the reality that everything is an ayah to the beautiful names of God, glorifying God, reflecting his face here and now everywhere. And when we forget this, when we fall into ghafla, the huge danger is that we fall into shirk without realizing, because we start loving things, therefore worshipping them, making them into idols, seeking benefits from them, instead of seeking it through from God. And so when we seek help from God alone, we are aware that whatever it is that is created here and now, actually, this is how we get to know God as the creator of everything. Our interaction with things is what takes us to God and makes us know him and see his face everywhere. Otherwise, this taqlid is repeating without feeling in the heart, without making shahada, without confirming the message. And that's why the heart remains unfulfilled. So we need to remains unfulfilled in this life, and if someone does not wake up in this life, they will be suffering in the next life when we wake up to the delusion, our delusion. Can you imagine waking up and realizing that we were living in a bubble of our own? In Surah 21, Ayah 97, 98, we are told again, and the true promise, the promise of death, the promise of resurrection, draws close. But behold, so this is repeated again in the Quran, behold, the eyes of those who disbelieve will stare in horror, and they will say, oh, woe unto us, we have certainly been heedless of this. Indeed, we have been wrongdoers. So they will wake up in Akhirah and they say, oh, we have certainly been heedless of this. يا ويلتنا قد كنا في غفلة من هذا بل كنا ظالمين. Indeed, we have been wrongdoers, oppressors. And the next ayah is, surely, and it will be told to them, surely you and all that you worship instead of God are but the fuel of hell. That is where you are destined. That's where you're going to go. So it means when we are in ghafla, our relationship with things is actually when we love things, we either love them or fear them, because we either imagine that they benefit us and we love them, or that they harm us and we fear them. It means that's what worshiping is. We are supposed to love God alone and fear God alone. So you see there how shirk enters and we start making things into idols without even being aware of it, because that's the characteristic of ghafla, of heedlessness. That's the delusion of heedlessness. We forget that the true, and we may know it as information, but that's not how we experience it in our heart, that God is the only true source of anything, good or bad, harm or so harm, we ask him for help, benefit, we ask him for help. So the alternative of not worshiping God, or the alternative of relying on powerless things, of imagining that things themselves can benefit or harm us, is that we are not worshiping God alone. And this is repeated in the Quran, that we're told وَيَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَنْفَعُهُم وَلَا يَضُرُّهُم وَكَانَ الْكَافِرُ عَلَى رَبِّهِ ظَهِيرًا. Like it is again and again, you probably all know that we are told people worship things that can neither benefit them nor harm them. And so can you imagine on that day, on the day of resurrection, the day of when everyone is brought together, and when the reality is clear, Yawm al-Din is when the reality is clear, and people realize that they wasted their life on delusions, that they lived in vain, and they spent their life and struggling for things that were ephemeral, and they faced that reality that they avoided all along, which is the reality of death, the reality of transience. And there are lots of ayats in the Quran where we are told that the life of this world is nothing but an enjoyment of delusion. This is repeated in the Quran, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Actually, in Surah 3, it's repeated in some passages in the Quran, and in one passage, interestingly, the ayah starts, so the ayah is 185 of Surah 3. It starts with, every soul is bound to taste death. This is also a phrase that is repeated in the Quran, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. But it is only on the day of resurrection that you will be requited in full. whereupon whoever is kept away from the fire and admitted into paradise will indeed have triumphed. For why? Because the life of this world is nothing but an enjoyment of self-delusion. So before it tells us that the life of this world is an enjoyment of self-delusion, we are told every soul is bound to taste death. Or we are told this world is merely a game and a diversion and a cause of boasting among yourselves. And then we are told the reality of this life is like a plant growing after rain, and then it dries, and then it turns into stubble. And this is the life you think you are living without finding its connection to the sustainer. This is life. That's it. There will be nothing left. This is again repeated again and again in the Quran. So since everything is bound to finish, to die, it's therefore, in a sense, we're told it is foolish to live as though you could escape that. We are even told in Surah 62, Ayah 8, behold, the death you run away from is bound to overtake you. And then you will be brought back unto him who knows the unseen as well as the seen, whereupon he will make you truly understand all that you were doing. And we are told also, however long you live, since life ends, all your enjoyment will be short. So even if whatever we plan in life, all our plans and goals and everything works exactly as we want, still the enjoyment of this life is so short, it's still not worth it. So in Surah 33, Ayah 16, we're told, say, whether you run away from death or from being killed, running away will not benefit you. For however you fare, you cannot enjoy life for more than a little while. Isn't that like very, very powerful messages? So when we don't reflect on the reality of death, we imagine that we will live for a long time. It's called Tul al-Amal, extended hope, that the Prophet ﷺ warned us against. And that illusion that we're going to live for a long time increases our illusion of independence from our God, from our Rabb. And this leads us, without even realizing, that's what ghafla is, to seek happiness, to seek fulfillment in things themselves, in achieving things in this world without any connection to akhirah. But for the conscious believers, the muhsins, they pursue and find happiness in seeking their Rabb face in everything, in every action, in every achievement. What fulfills them is to find the face of God, the connection to God, the connection to the beautiful names of God in whatever they do. And that's a direct connection to akhirah as well. And that activity is transformed into ibadah, into worship. It increases our iman, it increases the extent of our worship. Everything will be worship, and the depth, the quality of our worship. So we understand that heedlessness, ghafla, is a lack. Okay, I won't repeat it again. I think it's enough, inshallah. And one thing that you probably heard, and in the Quran we are told that ghafla is found in the heart, or the lack of iman. Iman is in the heart, and therefore the lack of iman is also in the heart. And so ghafla affects the heart, and it results in many illnesses, sicknesses that affect our spiritual health. Because imagine, like, if we live in a state of ghafla, it means our love, our attention is to the worldly life, to things themselves, without being aware of their connection to their creator. And so in that condition, people become unaware of their, for instance, accountability to their sustainer, to their Rabb. We forget about it. So people become more prone to commit sins, more prone to lose connection with their conscious, with their inner GPS that reminds them that something is off. And many things like that. And even like things like being jealous, having greed, fear that takes us to despair, or fear that makes us lie, makes us do all kinds of things because we feel helpless, and we are not unaware of our relationship with our sustainer, our helper. All those kinds of illnesses of the heart starts growing in the absence of mindfulness, in the absence of Iman. And that's why we constantly need to ask for forgiveness of forgetting and falling into a state of ghafla, because when we are in a state of ghafla, we don't know we are in a state of ghafla. That's what it is. Ghafla means we don't know that we don't know. We are unaware. That's what it means. So asking for forgiveness, like the Prophet ﷺ did constantly, is a preventive measure against this harmful state of being. And together with this, we need to nurture remembrance of our Rabb, and therefore of our ubudiyah, by reciting the Quran, by keeping the company of the people who constantly invoke their Rabb and seek his face. And constantly, when we are not actually reciting the Quran, we recite key sentences from the Quran, like Bismillah, like Alhamdulillah, like La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, like Subhanallah. Each one is the key to a treasure. If we have done our reflection, if we know the meaning of what it means and we experienced it at a certain level, the more when we repeat it with our tongue, we will also pause when we have the opportunity, maybe not always, but from time to time pause and remember what we experienced. What did Bismillah mean? And relive it and confirm it and celebrate it and again find the face of God there and rejoice at finding the face of God, rejoice at contemplating the reflection of the divine names, and prostrate, either truly prostrate or at least prostrate metaphorically before that, and participate with everything else in our tasbih. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, renew our gratitude and praise of our sustainer, our Rabb. And all this is dhikr, is remembrance, inshallah. And all this will, inshallah, heal us from ghafla and keep us away more and more into a state of connectedness and state of mindfulness, increase our iman and therefore our ihsan, and inshallah decreases our ghafla. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Ameen. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina. May Allah bless you. And thank you everyone for joining us. We have some time for comments and questions.
Yeah, and I had asked to take notes of like the main the main things that make us fall into ghafla, and how to heal from it based on these few ayats. I couldn't share all the ayats with you, but few that have always attracted my attention, and that I feel at this stage, at least in my life, they feel more clear to me. It doesn't mean that the others are not, it just means that I am not still ready for the others.
Thank you. So is there anyone who would like to highlight what stayed with you, what you found most helpful? And yeah, the floor is open. Any highlights, any comments, any questions, please don't be shy. We would like to hear from you. There is a comment that's typed. Natila, are you able to speak?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to maybe touch on the cure, one of the cure that was mentioned earlier. There were two cures, I think, and ayahs 27 and 28 of Surah Al-Kahf. The first one reciting the Quran for healing, and the other one was, being in the company of those who constantly are in the state of remembrance. And I was wondering, in practically, what does it mean for us living here, in the present? Yeah.
I couldn't understand your question. Could you say it for us here?
Being in the company of those who are constantly in the state of remembrance. So where do we find them? Who should we look out for? What does it mean practically? So that was my, for us here and now.
I think it would be nice to hear what everyone has to say, but it's going to be different at different stages for different people. The important thing is that at whatever level you are with people who remind you of God, who pull you up and remind you of God, remind you of things related to seeing the face of God in everything, rather than make you forget Him. Constantly is going to be relative to where you are. If you are already at a level where you remember God a lot, someone who remembers Him not as much won't be someone who is uplifting you. But wherever we are, if that is our intention, I personally feel that God answers our prayers, and we will recognize those people. But I would be interested to hear how others understand that, or how they experienced it in their life, inshallah.
Go ahead, Hadija Beza.
Assalamu alaikum. I had a comment which I feel may be connected to the question. That's why I felt like this was a good time to share. One thing that attracted my attention was how in the state of ghafla, then I divide up the world for myself. Like, this is the worldly life and this is the quote unquote spiritual or religious life. My activities or how I label things become separated. There becomes a dichotomy, the way I view my life and the way I understand myself. So there's always this duality, if you will. Whereas without the ghafla, when in a state of awareness, then everything in my existence, so long as it is existing, right, and that's what I have access to first and foremost, the moment something exists and I have access to it, the fact that it exists itself points to its source of existence. So it reminds me of the source which is manifesting qualities upon it. And with that perspective, then even if I'm, I don't know, just wearing my socks or something, like something very mundane, something that's not exciting or something out of the ordinary, even in my interactions with my feet or whatever the activity is, it urges me, like then in that state I feel an urgency to question, like how am I moving my feet, or how am I moving my fingers, for example, this hand-eye coordination that's going on, like all these different activities internally and externally going on. And then I may even question my own sense of consciousness, of my consciousness at that moment as well. So I felt like that was a very important point. And also it grabbed my attention. And so in relation to the question, I was thinking how, being in the company of those that remind me of God, with the right mindset and perspective, then essentially anything and everything can remind me of God. Of course, in the pitfall of familiarity or taking things for granted, then I leave that mindset. But in is the key words, like in my life for remembrance, or in asking for forgiveness, trying to cultivate that sense of awareness become good opportunities for me to kind of, even I may not be next to a person who I'm speaking to God about, but even in my interaction with the universe, then the universe could be talking to me about my source of existence, my creator, who is sustaining me right then and there. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for sharing, Khadija Bezal. Thank you very much. I think that's, I personally find it refreshing to think about the company in a broader sense.
That's definitely true. I think this ayah is also it's talking about people, because it says الذين, those who الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي. And I think that's where we want. What you just shared is where we want to be, right? Even when we are alone, everything else is with us. We are not alone, actually. Everything else is reminding us of God. But until we get to that level, we also need the company of those who remind us and teach us that way of being. Right? Inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah. And perhaps, we are always in the company of people. So insofar as we're not alone, then it makes sense to
choose as much as we can.
Yes, prioritize certain environments that encourage us to remember and see the praises of God in the universe. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Is there anybody else who would like to share a comment? Okay, if not, then we will pause here for today. And inshallah, Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina, and all of you for joining us tonight. And may we live the fruits of these beautiful messages from the Quran, and may we be in a state of more and more remembrance and less ghafla, inshallah. So we'll meet inshallah next week and continue our journey into the Quran. Please join us, and also keep in mind that the retreat registration is continuing. So on October 15 is until October 15 we have the best rate for registration. So if you're planning to join us, then register soon, inshallah, and share with others who might be interested in this kind of listening approach, would enjoy exploring beautiful names of God with us in during this retreat, inshallah. The details are on the website, and feel free to reach out to us with questions if you have any. And please spread the word. Thank you, everyone, and Jazakumullah khair, Van and Dr. Yamina.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, inshallah.